Welcome to the Irresistible You podcast. This is the place to get a dose of empowerment to create the life you crave and deserve. I'm your host, Amy Beltran, CEO and founder of Irresistible University. Through my podcast and coaching program, I teach women just like you how to ditch the body image issues, gain confidence, and lose the emotional weight to look and feel irresistible at any size. If you like this podcast, you're going to love my group coaching program. If you want to learn more about the program, including the investment cost, what's included, see real client testimonials, and to sign up and enroll, please head over to irresistibleicing.com/course. The link is also in the show notes. Hey there, welcome back to the podcast. How are you? How are things? Last week, on episode 140, we talked about how to create your future self. So for those of you that have been listening to the podcast, especially recently over the last couple episodes, you know that I myself am kind of going back through my own Irresistible You coaching program and going through it with the eyes of a student and really kind of up-leveling myself. I kind of reached a point in life where I decided I was hitting a wall a little bit and I needed to reset. And so that's what I've been doing, not only with my weight loss journey, but also in my personal development, self-love journey, which I actually consider all of that one and the same. And I had told you guys that I'm on this path to lose, what did I call it? 10 pounds, 10 times, right? Because when we look at losing weight and we say, I have 100 pounds to lose or I have 50 pounds to lose, whatever the number is, it feels daunting. So I made this decision that we were going to break it down. Now, I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on where I'm at, and then we're going to dive into today's topic, which is all around resistance and self-sabotage. So, on my personal weight loss journey, guys, I had my second child, my son Javi, almost a year ago now in October 2020. And when I got pregnant with Javi, I got up on the day of delivery to just about 270 pounds. And when I decided to hit the reset button and really recommit to myself, I was right around 242 pounds. Last week I was 239, and this week I'm 238. So I am super excited about that. Things are progressing. I'm building momentum. I'm getting back into things. And it's not just about weight loss and what are you doing to lose the weight? And there's a lot of components to that, guys. It's really not even about 5% of it is what I eat, honestly, and the rest of it is the stuff that we talk about here on the podcast, and we're going to get into more of that in just a second. But the way I was breaking it down, when I say 10 pounds 10 times, is the way I like to look at weight loss is to look at it in decades. I call it decades every 10 pounds. So right now, I'm in the 230s decade, and the next goal for me is to get out of that decade. So we've got just about 8 pounds to go. And when I look at it that way, it feels so doable. It feels so, I'm using this word loosely, easy, right? It doesn't feel like, oh my God, I have 25 more to go, or I have 38 more pounds to go till Wonderland. It's like, I can do this. This is easy. I got this. And so that's where I'm at right now. And then within each decade, I have my goals of where I want to be. So from right now, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling better about myself. And it's not because I'm going down in the scale. It's because I'm doing the things again that I need to be doing to take care of me, to not self-sabotage me. And I feel like that's what a lot of women really don't understand, is that it's not about your diet. It's not about the next meal plan. It's not about the hardcore workout plan. That is not it. That is not what's going to get you to your goal weight, and that is not what is going to get you to your goal life. And I would much rather have a slower process of losing weight, knowing that I'm never going backwards. There is literally no reason that I should ever have to see 240 pounds on my scale again. I don't ever need to be that number again. And I could do a quick fix. I could lose, 10 pounds in 10 days or whatever the hell, but it's not going to stay off that way. I don't feel like I'm losing weight. I feel like I'm living my life, and that is what has worked for me in the past. Before I got pregnant with Javi and I was, really, really in the groove and doing all the things, like, it wasn't feeling like I was on a diet because I'm not. It's because I wanted and I decided to learn how to just live my damn life without being on a diet. And this is the first time in a long time. I'm not even counting points. I'm not counting points. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I am changing my relationship, number one, with me. Because I realized over the past year, and I have been through a lot in the past year. For those of you that don't know, you can go back and listen to other episodes. I'm not going to get into everything today. I've been through a lot. And I lost myself a little bit along the way, and that's okay. It happens. And so I am in a place where I have had to rebuild the relationship with me again, the relationship I have with food again. And that's how I want to live my life. So when I think about who I want to become someone who just eats like a normal person, who just eats healthy, but also indulges from time to time and doesn't stress out about it. And that will always take longer, but here's the kicker. It will take longer, but you're never going to do this again. You're never going to have to lose the weight again if you adopt the things that I'm telling you to do. If you adopt the Irresistible You way of life, the 5 principles, if this is what you do in your life and you adopt the framework that we've created, you're not going to go backwards again. Right? You're not going to gain back all the weight. And even though I was finding myself kind of in this slump, lost myself a little bit, just, you know how that goes. One of the things that didn't happen, I didn't lose weight, but I didn't gain any weight. And that's a big success for me because years ago, I would have definitely, considering everything that's happened to me this past year, I would have easily put on 50 pounds. Easily. And I haven't gained any of the weight back. So that in and of itself is a win. So sometimes I just want you to acknowledge that when you're really going through some stuff and you are like, I'm not losing weight anymore. But if you're not gaining the weight and you're just staying in the same place, that is a success because sometimes we just have it in us to maintain. We just have enough strength in us to hang on and maintain. And that's a win, and I want you to acknowledge that. So I wanted to give you that update. That's where I'm at. And yeah, so we're going to get into it. Last week we talked about creating your future self and what that means and why it is so important to your journey, in your journey to weight loss, in your journey to becoming Irresistible You. If you don't define who you want to be, then what plan or path are you even following? And that's why we end up desperate dieting, because we just want to get the weight off as quickly as possible because we're so unhappy and miserable in our skin. But that never works. And I'm telling you, if that worked, I wouldn't have people listening to this podcast in the first place that can completely relate to everything that we talk about here, right? So if you haven't listened to episode 140, I want you to go back and I want you to listen to that as well. Now, today's topic and the title of this episode is that resistance to change is self-sabotage. I want to say that again because I think it's just so mind-blowing. Resistance to change is self-sabotage. Let's break it all down. Number 1. What do we mean by resistance? What do we mean by resistance? Resistance is just opposition. It is an opposing force. It is you resisting something for whatever reason. And I will tell you that the ability to master resilience is one of the magic keys to your success. And the ability to master resistance with yourself is not something that's taught in a meal plan. It's not something that's taught in a diet. It's not something that's taught by the size 2 personal trainer. They're not going to teach you those things. But the ability to recognize and to master resistance within yourself is the thing that's going to help propel you to your highest self. So we talk a lot here on the podcast, and we really did cover this last week, about becoming your future self, becoming the irresistible you version of yourself. When we talk about the irresistible you version of yourself, it's you 2.0, it's you 10x, it's you, like, it's next level you, it's glow up you, it's the best version of you. And so many women are walking around like zombies. And you guys know that rock with me that I have all these terms and terminology and all the things. When we talk about zombie walking here, we're talking about the people that just go to work, go to lunch, come home, go pick up the kids, make the dinner, go to bed, do the da-da-da, and are just in this zombie mentality where they're like disassociated from themselves and their life. And I am telling you guys, if you drive in the morning on the freeway or the highway, if you go to an airport, you will see the zombie walkers everywhere. It's like these people in a daze just getting through life. They're not living, they're existing. And when you're walking around, all these women out here that are walking around, zombie walking through life, who are not living their highest version of themselves, who are not using their full potential, that is not living, it's existing. And there's resistance in that, right? Because all of us were put here to do something to make a difference. And that looks different for every single person. I know my purpose. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't know their purpose yet, but that's okay, because you can get there. But we were all put here to be the highest version of ourselves. And, you know, it's easy to say you want success. It's easy to say you want to lose weight. It's easy to say you want to make more money. It's easy to say you want different things for yourself. That's easy to say it and to be jealous and to be bitter and angry about it because you don't have it. But what have you done to make those things happen? And what are you doing to self-sabotage yourself from making those things happen? And we always tell ourselves, you know, well, I have a fear of failure. And I don't agree with that. I think maybe sometimes, yeah, sure, people have a fear of failure, obviously. But I think more often than not, we have a fear of success. Because let's be real, right? Like, I mean this with all the peace and love, but you know how to fail. If you're listening to this podcast, you're a chronic yo-yo dieter, you know how to fail. You know what failure feels like. But do you know what success feels like? True, authentic success. Do you know what that feels like? Do you have a clue what that feels like? And so a fear of success is often a bigger driver than a fear of failure. Why? Because fear of success is ultimately a fear of responsibility. Because success comes with a shit ton of responsibility and obligation to maintain that success. Whether that is maintaining your weight, whether that is maintaining a certain lifestyle, whether that is maintaining a certain level because you are responsible for other people. Success comes with more responsibilities. And so a lot of people, even though they say they want this, I want to lose weight, I want to have the house, I want, and they can't get there because there's a resistance to that change. There's a resistance to that success. Because there's some kind of underlining fears. You know, it's the fear of success. It's the self-belief that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, that you don't deserve to have certain things. And it's easier on the surface level to blame our weight and our circumstances instead of making those changes. Well, if I lost 50 pounds, of course everything would be easier. Of course, if I lost 100 pounds, I'd be a happier person. Of course, if I lost 50 pounds, I would play with my kids more and we would have a happier home life. I would have the job, because we come up with all these excuses, and it's easy to just say it's because of the weight. Because the weight's very surface level, right? It's easy to blame our circumstances as well on the reasons why we're not where we want to be. So there's a lot of reasons why we do self-sabotage, right? We self-sabotage because we have some of these limiting beliefs. We also, inside of my coaching program, we refer to these as rules. We all have rules that we created in our subconscious brain somewhere along the way. A rule and a limiting belief are basically kind of one and the same. But like a rule that we create is like, well, I'm not allowed to have success because I'm fat. You may not walk around every day saying that to yourself, because that's kind of weird. We don't usually walk around telling ourselves that, but we have a belief in our subconscious somewhere that we believe we don't deserve success because we're fat. We don't deserve a partner because we're fat. We don't deserve the promotion because we're fat. There's some rule that you created in your life. I'm not allowed to wear sleeveless clothes because my arms are too big. I'm not allowed to wear stripes because my hips are too wide. I'm not allowed to be athletic because people are going to think, who is she? She's overweight, right? There are rules and limiting beliefs as, and I'm using this word loosely again, innocent, as I'm too fat to wear a bathing suit, so I'm not going to go swimming, to I'm too fat to have kids, so I'm going to not allow myself to even go down that path. I'm not going to allow myself to find a husband or a partner because I'm too fat to get married and have kids. Like, there's some serious stuff going on that we're holding ourselves back from because of this resistance to change and this self-sabotage. Because again, resistance to changing your life is self-sabotage. And, these limiting beliefs and these rules, let's call them rules because that's part of the Irresistible You terminology, these rules that we have created, they are beliefs that you hold that you believe to be the absolute truth. When actually, it's not truthful at all. But when you believe it to be true and your brain has trained yourself to think it's true, it's the absolute truth for you. Does that make sense? That's kind of weird, right? Like, if you truly, honestly believe, I am not worthy of love because I'm fat, in your mind, your brain has created that that's the absolute truth. But we all know, logically, that's not true, right? And so these rules that we have that keep allowing us to self-sabotage, most of them were created in our childhood. Most of them came from something in childhood, something in our past, in our younger life, whether it was in childhood or even as adults, young adults or adults, some type of defining moment, some type of trauma, some type of experience. And they don't just come from trauma also. They come from, the messages we're exposed to, the things that were said to us directly, the things that weren't said that needed to be said. Because silence is also a form of trauma, and it's very powerful. There are things that you probably needed to hear, and you didn't hear those things. And staying quiet about certain things is just as harmful as verbal abuse and hearing awful, horrible things as well. And so we have these beliefs that we've created over time. And it comes directly from the people that took care of us. It comes from friends. It comes from teachers, mentors, the media even. And so all of that kind of bundles up into this ball of these rules that we have about how we should be living our life based on what we look like, based on all these different things. And here's the thing, right? Is our subconscious mind is such a powerful place. It is such a powerful place, and the key to unlocking so many things that you want is to break into that and to start making these changes, because some of these rules are so deeply embedded in us that we don't believe that we actually, like, we don't even know that we have them, right? Because we just think that's just how it is. You know, it might be like, well, you know, being overweight runs in the family and this is just how it is. But is it? Is that really how it is? Is that the absolute truth? So we have to take a second and really dive into, what are the rules that I am telling myself that are holding me back? What are the rules that I need to break in order to become the higher version of me, in order to become Irresistible You? And break the rules is actually is our first guiding principle within the Irresistible You framework. Everything that I teach inside of the Irresistible You coaching program is based upon 5 guiding principles that create the foundation of the program. And the first one is called Break the Rules. Because if we can't break the rules that we've created, then we can't move forward. We can't stop self-sabotaging. We can't stop the resistance that we have to changing our life. If you don't even know what you believe, how are you going to change anything? So it's like you have to start with, who do you want to become? And in order to become her, what do I have to believe? What do I have to change? What do I have to think differently? Because here's what ends up happening, or I tell you, the subconscious brain, you guys, it is so powerful. So powerful. We have these rules that we create. Let's just use this one as an example. I'll never be able to lose the weight because I've never been able to keep it off. I'll never be able to lose the weight because I've never been able to keep it off. Okay? And we believe in our brain that's the truth. That is the absolute truth. And we end up having like a self-fulfilling prophecy where on a subconscious level, we start doing things to sabotage ourselves to make that become true because we want it to be true. So just hang with me for a second. If we tell ourselves out loud, I'll never be able to lose the weight, right? On a subconscious level, because you truly believe that's the truth, you start doing things to prove yourself right. Because you want to prove that you're right to have some level of control. Because you feel so out of control in your life, you feel so out of control in your weight, that then you start to self-sabotage in ways to not lose the weight, and then you can go, see, I told you I was right. It doesn't make any sense, but it's what we do, and I know you do it too, right? So the reason we do this too is that our mind doesn't want, it's kind of like our brain protects us almost to a fault because our brain is always trying to protect us from change. And when we introduce any type of change in our life, even though that's a positive change, our brain has been wired to do things a certain way. Because we build these little pathways throughout our life and this and that, and we have these routines and all these things that we've done. And so when we introduce something different, our brain is on guard because it feels like there's some kind of threat to our routine. And so your brain will do everything it wants, everything in its way to sabotage that change. And this is why we have to work at this every single day on what we're thinking. Because again, I don't give a shit what meal plan you have, what stupid ass detox tea you just bought, or what little, size 2 personal trainers running around telling you how to do, okay? None of those things are going to help your brain change the beliefs that you have. And if you don't change your beliefs, your rules, nothing is going to make a difference. If you believe that you can't lose the weight, then guess what? You're not going to lose the weight. Because your brain will constantly find ways to self-sabotage because it wants to prove that that's the truth. And the powerful thing about this is that all of this can be flipped to where you're telling yourself, I can lose this weight. I'm going to lose this weight. And then your brain will get to work and start thinking about like all the ways it's going to line up and make this work for you. Guys, I know this might be hard to understand for everybody, but this is where it's at. This is where the change is at. Diets, meal plans, protein shakes, they don't do a damn thing to affect self-sabotage. The way you affect self-sabotage is to start changing the way you think, to start changing the damn relationship with yourself. That's the single most important place to start. And I said at the beginning, the ability to master resistance is the key to your success. The ability to master and manage your emotions is also the key to your success. So it's not enough to want something. You know, we talk about last week, our future self, I want to have this and I want to have that. And da, da, da. It's not enough to just want it. You have to reprogram your brain on how you're going to get there. And it's not something that's one and done. Oh, well, I changed my thought today, so I should be good to go. No, girl, it don't work that way. This is a constant, every single day thing. Right? So you have to start establishing new thoughts. You have to start establishing new patterns so that your brain understands and knows, okay, this is actually good for us. This is actually what we need. This is actually the truth now. Like, oh yeah, like telling myself I can't lose weight. Oh yeah, that's actually not true. So when you have self-sabotaging thoughts, what does that even sound like, right? It's when you speak in those absolutes. I'll never lose the weight. That is a powerful statement. And I say it all the time, like your words matter. The way you talk about things matters. Because the way you talk about things is the way you do things. The way you talk about things is the way you do things. I'll never lose the weight. You're right. So then you're going to do all the things to sabotage that from ever happening. And you're going to blame your genes, your circumstances, your lifestyle, your family. You're going to blame all these other external factors on why you can't do something. Because that's easier. That's easier than actually changing. It's easier to stay in that place. It's easier to say, see, I told you so. This will never happen for me. I told you this wouldn't happen. You know, there's a variety of things that you could be thinking. You know, you could be thinking losing weight is not safe. Maybe there's a belief in your body somewhere that losing weight is not safe because I'm going to be seen. And I don't want to be seen. When we talk in absolutes, it's I'll never, I can't, that never works for me, I've tried everything in the world, I know that I can't do this. When we speak in those absolutes, I want you to pay attention to your thoughts because those things are self-sabotaging thoughts. Those things are resistance to what you really want for yourself. And so how do you stop this? How do you stop resisting the change that you actually want for yourself, right? How do you stop resisting change and stop self-sabotaging? And before we even do that, just another, I know I say this in a lot of episodes, but there's new people here, and I think it's always good to hear something again. There's an analogy that I like to use about self-sabotaging and resistance to change, and that's the wet blanket. And so I want you to imagine, because you think to yourself, if I want this so bad, it's like I want to lose weight so bad, but yet I'm not doing the things I know I need to do. Why? What's wrong with me? Well, what's wrong is everything that we're talking about is that your brain is trying to protect you from change. You have limiting beliefs and rules that you need to tap into because you have to start changing those. Because once you change those, your actions are going to be much different, right? So let me just use this analogy first, and then we'll get into some how-tos. So think about yourself laying on your couch, and for whatever reason, you got a wet blanket. Like, you know how you go to dry your comforter and it didn't dry completely the first time, so it's like super damp? Let's just say you grabbed it out of the dryer, you go and lay down because you're so tired, and you put this damp, wet blanket on top of you. Well, what does that feel like? It feels heavy. It feels cold. It feels damp, wet, and quite frankly, it feels miserable. And you continue to lay there because you're tired, because you don't want to get up. And even though you're like, oh, this is so uncomfortable, but I am just so tired, I can't move right now, right? And so the more you lay there, you start getting used to it because your body temperature actually starts to acclimate to this wet blanket. And if you lay there long enough under a wet blanket, you get used to it. But if you start to move, if you start to change positions, let's say you move your arm out of the blanket, well, that's going to feel really cold because that dampness is on your arm. And when that dampness hits the air, it's a shock to the system because it's cold. If you move your legs in a new position, it's a shock to the system. They're now feeling cold and it doesn't feel good anymore. Even though you know logically in your head, the best thing that I could do right now is to get up off this couch and take this wet blanket off and go outside in the sunshine. That's what I should go and do. But there's a disconnect because you're getting comfortable with being you're getting comfortable with feeling miserable. And it's the same thing when you're uncomfortable in your own skin and you've gained all the weight and you just don't feel good and you don't like how you look, you don't like how you feel with the extra weight and the extra skin. You know you want to change, but thinking about that change feels painful. It feels scary. And so your brain protects you and says, no. We don't want to do that because we've gotten used to this routine. Because our brain, when we start to do something new, it actually doesn't know yet if the change is good for us or not. It has no idea. It just knows, warning, 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 we're trying to make a change. We don't do that. We already have a set routine, right? And so your brain will protect you and keep you under that wet blanket on your couch. Even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's, miserable, it's familiar. And familiarity is what your brain craves. You crave things that are familiar. So that's really what it's about because, when you feel miserable in your own skin, you know you need to make changes. You know what changes you should be making, but then you can't do it because that's the resistance. The resistance is that moment of getting up off the couch and going outside in the warm sun. So that resistance feels uncomfortable because it is. Because it's different, because it's new, because it requires you to use more energy. It takes more energy to stand up, take the blanket off, and walk your ass outside. That takes a lot more energy than to stay under the wet blanket, feel sorry for yourself, tell yourself the same old, tired ass beliefs. But yet, if you go through the pain, the uncomfortableness of standing up, taking it off, and walking outside, the long-term results of that, you can't put a price on that. You're going to feel so much better. You're going to go outside and go, oh yeah, this feels really good. I feel warm. I feel great. I'm like, but that gap between where you are and where you want to be, that's the resistance to change. So you self-sabotage so that you can stay under the wet blanket. Even though we logically know the wet blanket fucking sucks. It sucks. We don't want to be there. We don't want to be there. But we stay because it's familiar. And the idea of change is scary. It's scary on a conscious level, and it's like scary on a subconscious level at the same time, right? But filling the gap, going against that resistance, is how you get to where you want to be. You cannot become your future self that you defined last week if you're not willing to take the wet blanket off. It's the only way. So, how to stop resisting change starts with your thoughts. I will always point you back to this. Number one, it starts with, what are you thinking? What are you telling yourself? What do you believe? What are your rules? Because we scientifically know that our thoughts control our feelings. And whatever it is we're feeling and our emotions controls our actions. If you're looking around your life and you don't like your life and you don't like the things that you're doing, I want you to go back to, well, how are you feeling? Well, then what are you thinking? Because if your thought is, I'll never lose the weight, that's going to produce feelings of defeat. Think about this. You throw all your food away, you do your Last Supper routine with all the fast food and ordering all the shit that you think you're never going to eat again. You know the routine. And you tell yourself, I'm going to start over on Monday. But the whole time you're telling yourself, I'm going to start over on Monday, but I'll never be able to lose this weight. But I'm going to do this. I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try this meal plan. I'm going to cut out, all this stuff that it's telling me to cut out or whatever. Right? So if you're telling yourself, your thought is, I'll never lose the weight. Well, the way you're going to feel on Monday morning is you're going to feel defeated before you even take the first bite out of your meal plan. Right? Right? You're going to feel probably sad. You're going to feel, again, defeated. You're going to feel like, what's the point? And if you're going into something feeling like, what's the point? I feel defeated. What do you think your actions are going to do? You're going to half-ass everything. And you're going to start self-sabotaging because you have to prove that you're right so that you can have control over the situation. Because you don't feel like you have control over your weight, you can have control over, see, I told you so. I told you it wasn't going to work. Never works for me. And that just keeps you stuck in that, yo-yo diet, body hate, shame cycle over and over and over again. Because it starts with your thoughts. Your thoughts determine your feelings determine your actions. Period. So what you need to do is you need to start writing down, what are the limiting beliefs? What are the thoughts that you have? What are the rules? What rules did you create for yourself? I had one many, many years ago when I first started doing this work that I discovered, and one of my rules was, I'm not allowed to feel happy until I get to my goal weight. And so because of that, I would go on vacations or I would go to events and I wouldn't let myself have fun. I would hold myself back. I would make myself small in my actions. And so what are your rules? Write down, get out a notebook, get out a piece of paper after this episode, or do it right now. Write down, what are the rules that I have created for myself? Okay. The second thing you have to do is you have to anchor back to your future self. So go back to episode 140, listen to it. You have to create the vision. What is the vision of your future self? What is the vision of who you are? Who is your irresistible you version of you? Who is you 2.0? Who is you 2.0? What is the future vision you have for yourself? Because when you have these rules or these thoughts, you need to anchor back to that and say, wait a second. The future version of me has lost all of her weight. So clearly she believed that she could do this. So here's what I know I want for myself, my future self wants. And so I today need to take actions to make that happen. That's what you have to do. So you have to constantly anchor back to your future self. And I talked about it last week because the reason for this too is that instant gratification will always feel better than delayed gratification. Weight loss is delayed gratification. Binge eating, emotional eating, that's instant gratification. So you have to think in honor of who you want to become. And who you want to become isn't going to get there if you're binge eating every single night, right? Number 3 is that this is not a one and done kind of thing, guys. Like, if you think you're going to sit here and listen to this podcast and go, okay, cool, I wrote some shit down, moving on, it's not going to work, okay? You have to recommit every single day to who you want to be. Anybody in life that's successful with their weight loss, financially, career-wise, whatever, they make a recommitment every single day, because every single day life is hard, right? Every single day we're going to be faced with challenges. Every single day we're going to be faced with something that feels like it can pull us off of our path. We're going to be faced with resistance all the time. Instant gratification is going to pull us in. So you have to recommit every day. What do you want for yourself? What is your plan for today? It has to be top of mind. You have to recommit to yourself every day. This will eliminate the bullshit story about, well, I was doing so good and, then this came along. Well, I was doing so good and, so-and-so invited me out to happy hour. Threw me off the wagon. It's all their fault. No, it's not their fault. Again, and I should probably have added this as well, we got to take responsibility for us. We got to take responsibility for what goes in our mouth, for what we do in our life, for what we think about ourselves. Because the thoughts that we have, we're in control of those things, nobody else. So you got to stop pointing fingers and blaming every other person and start looking at yourself. You got to be accountable and own up to, how are you contributing to this? What is it that you're doing that is like in opposition of what you want? And also stop sitting around waiting for someone else to save you from yourself. That's not going to happen. That's a fairy tale. That's a bunch of bullshit, and that's never going to happen. Go save yourself. You have to save yourself. Stop worrying about, well, if somebody would go for a walk with me, or if my husband would do this with me and blah, 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 then I would be, on the way to losing all my weight. No, do it for yourself. And stop pointing fingers at everybody else and take responsibility. We're grown adults here. Okay? So when you recommit to yourself every single day, you're putting yourself first. You're making yourself a priority. You're telling your brain that now I'm going to work in honor of that, so that everything I'm doing today is moving me forward. Because again, remember, your brain will look for evidence. It will look for evidence of what is true. And if you're telling yourself, I got this, I'm going to lose the weight and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z today, then your brain on this, it's just amazing. On this subconscious level, it will constantly do things throughout the day to make that happen. Start writing stuff down on a to-do list and see how much of it starts happening. When I am the queen of procrastination, y'all. I cannot stand to do admin, I cannot stand, personal property tax is due, or we got to go to the DMV, or we got to go file this paperwork and you got to put it in the mail and it can't be email. I hate that kind of stuff. Like, I hate it. And I will procrastinate my ass off. And then I usually end up in the situation where I'm down to the wire. And I always do it to myself, right? When I start putting those things, those tasks that I hate, when I start writing this stuff down, like, okay, here's my to-do list for the day, all of a sudden it just gets done. And I'm like, well, what changed? All I did was write it down. I've known for 2 months I needed to put that thing in the mail, right? I'm telling you, I got a set of baby monitors. I got a set of baby monitors that have sat downstairs on my bar for, I think we bought them in July. It's now October, 3 months. Okay, like, what the hell? I made a huge step last weekend. I put them in my car. But have I taken them back to the store? No. I bet you if I write that joint down on my list, it'll get done. Because when we write it down, it's signaling to your brain, like, I need to get this done. And so, I'm telling you, start writing stuff down. Recommit to yourself every single day. Part of that recommitment is you have to say to yourself, okay, what's my next best step? You know, I think with weight loss especially, we have, and probably the majority of people of you that listen to this have this as well, there's an all or nothing mentality, right? There's an all or nothing mentality that comes along with, if I can't do it perfectly, if I can't start over on Monday and have a clean slate, if I can't break out my, home goods calendar that's all cute and pretty, and if I can't put a green check mark every single day that I worked out, then I'm failing. And we have to throw that all or nothing mentality out the window, because perfectionism is sick. Perfectionism is toxic. It's toxic. Perfectionism is absolutely toxic because it holds us back. It feeds right into resistance. It feeds right into self-sabotage. So you have to ask yourself, what is my next best step? Like, not how am I going to lose 100 pounds? It's like, what can I do at the next meal? And you might ask yourself, what's my next best step all throughout the day? Right? It's like, what's my next best step for dinner tonight? It's like, my next best step is I'm not going to order out. I'm going to cook at home. And maybe it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter what I cook at home. I'm just not going to order out. It really, really starts that small. These little tiny building blocks of imperfect action is the things that will alleviate the anxiety that you're not doing enough. It will alleviate the perfectionism syndrome. It will alleviate the resistance and the self-sabotage when you take imperfect action. Because when you take imperfect action and you're asking yourself, okay, what's my next best step right this moment? Okay, I can do that. You start to feel a sense of momentum. You start to feel like, I got this. And the more you do that, again, it goes back to, you're proving yourself correct, that you can do it. So instead of working from a place of, I'll never be able to lose the weight, and then you start doing these little things to self-sabotage and blame and point fingers and all the things, you do the opposite and you take these small imperfect action steps, these little building blocks, and it's like your brain starts going, oh, shit, like, she is doing this. She can do this. This is true. So you start doing more of that, because then you're like, this is a safe thing to do. This is good. You start building that inner confidence in yourself. So no perfectionism. That is toxic behavior. What is the next imperfect step that you could take for yourself? What is it? What does it look like? It could be, I'm only going to have one serving of that. Or one thing that a lot of us do, we say, well, I don't have time to do, a 45-minute walk today. So I'm just going to sit my ass on the couch and I'm going to scroll Instagram. Okay, but you sit there and you scroll Instagram for 10, 15 minutes because you had time for that. Because you have told yourself that 10 minutes is not going to make a difference. But it does. 10 minutes of you walking around is always going to make more of a difference than 10 minutes of you sitting on your ass doing nothing. And it's not even just about your weight, guys. It's good for your brain. It's good for your mental health, your emotional health. It gets the blood flowing. It gets the momentum going. And it, again, reinforces, I can do this. So, imperfect action, what is my next best step? Not how am I going to get to goal weight? What is my next best step today? And the more you do that, you have all of a sudden, all these little tiny decisions and building blocks, you can look back and go, how did I lose 30 pounds? Because I did all of those things. It wasn't one thing that got the 30 pounds off. It was a culmination of all these little building blocks that you do imperfectly. Okay. So yeah, so that's really it. That's how we start moving into a place where we stop the self-sabotage. It has to be a conscious effort every single day. Because that resistance will always be there. Even when you get, far along in your journey, you're still going to feel that resistance at times to go backwards. I certainly felt it over the summer with everything that went on, and felt that resistance of like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to take care of myself. I don't want to make healthy choices. I don't want to eat, do these things. And, I've had to fight it really hard. Some days it feels like a fight, and some days it just feels like nothing. So just know that that's how it's supposed to be, because somewhere along the way in diet culture, it got embedded into us. There became a belief, a rule that, once we decide we're on the diet and we pick the diet that we're going to do, that it's never going to feel hard again. Because that was what was embedded and sold to us, that once we do this, there is no going backwards. And I believe strongly that the whole before and after story has really contributed to that, where we think, well, this was me before, and I would overeat, and I would do this, and that, and now here is me after, and I never overeat, and I never indulge, and I never miss a day at the gym. Well, that's just bullshit. That's not real life, okay? So when I decided in my future self, when I decided my vision of who I want to be, part of my vision is I want to be someone who lives a healthy lifestyle, who has a healthy relationship with food. And a healthy relationship with food for me means, I eat clean and healthy a good chunk of the time, but I also eat fast food. I also eat at the food truck. I also eat, I'm not going to go to a festival and be like, oh, well, I can't eat nothing. No, have fun, live your life. Part of living life is food. But you have to learn how to manage yourself, your emotions around the food. And so for me, that's the kind of life I want to live, is that if I go on vacation, we're getting ready to go to Disney World, and I'm not sitting here trying to go to Disney World well, I can't have this or I can't have that. It's nah, bitch, I'm going to eat what I want. And I'm also going to be walking 2,500 steps a day. So, whatever. But the big changes the thing with that too is it's a difference between being awake and being a zombie. When you're a zombie and you're zombie walking through life and you're zombie eating through life, you're not aware of what you're doing. You just do it, and then you act like, oh my God, how did I gain this weight? Oh gee, I don't know, maybe it was what you put in your mouth. We act like it's some shock, it's so, oh my God, I can't believe I've gained this weight back. It's well, let's take a look back at your actions, right? We've all done it. We act like it just happened to us. So the difference starts to become you being aware of what's going in your mouth or not. I'm not going to live a life without cheesecake. I'm not going to live a life without birthday cake. I'm also not going to live a life where I eat it 7 days a week. I'm also not going to live a life where I go to the Harris Teeter and buy a tub of icing and sit in the bathtub and eat it. Yeah, I've done it. And I've done it. We've all done it. I'm not going to live a life where I do those things. But I'm going to live a life where if I have a craving for something, we're going to figure it out. So you have to decide for yourself, what does that look like for you? I'm not over here trying to be a bodybuilder. I'm not over here trying to be a size 8. I'm not over here trying to be skinny at all. I'm over here trying to be healthy, curvy, thick, athletic. That's what I want for myself. And so in the program, one of the questions is how do you want your body to look? I don't mind having extra weight. I don't mind being thick and curvy. I actually prefer that, honestly, where years ago I fought against it. And it's kind of like my natural hair. My natural hair is curly, and I have fought against that for many, many years. And then I was like, you know what? I like having curly hair. It's different. Not everybody has curly hair. And you have to decide, what are your goals? Again, Who do you want to become? Because if you're sitting there operating from a place of you've got to be a size 2 and you're currently a size 20, how are you going to get there? What does that look like? And if that's your goal, that's fine. But everybody's body goals, weight goals are different. I don't think we look at a chart and go, well, you're 5'3" and you should weigh this much. And this is, no, that's a bunch of bullshit. So how do you want to feel? How do you want to look? How do you want to just go through life? And you have to decide that for yourself, right? Here's the thing. My body type was never, when I was born, my body type was like, well, you are not intended to be a size 2. It is not in the cards for you. And that is okay. Because here's the thing. If I wanted to be a size 2 with the body type that I have, I would live a sad existence because I would not be able to indulge and enjoy the cheesecake, the birthday cake, going to the food festivals, going to Disney and eating whatever I want because I don't have that type of metabolism. I don't have that body shape. So I would be absolutely killing myself and be miserable every single day if I wanted to maintain a size 2. Do you see, are you with me? Like, do you feel me? Do you know what I'm saying? If I want to be a size 12, I got that in the bag. Like, I can do that, right? Like, I can do that. I don't mind having a little extra, chunky chunk roll. I don't mind it. I think it's cute. I used to hate it. I don't like my stomach at the moment. We got some cleanup work to do, okay? But I don't hate myself because of it either. I don't think I'm a worthless piece of shit because I gained weight because I had a baby again. There's a difference. So, okay, I'm like going on and on. And I could keep going because this is fun and I love talking with you guys and I love talking about this stuff. But let's keep this conversation going elsewhere. Let's bring it over to the Facebook group. There is a free podcast discussion group. It is on Facebook. Request to join. I will let you inside of the group. It is absolutely free. If you want to take it a bit further and you know that you want to work with me, you like what I talk about, you like my style, I'm not for everyone. I know that. I'm not trying to be for everyone. Then you can work with me. You can go to irresistibleicing.com/course. You can learn all about my coaching program, how it works, get the testimonials, see the investment cost. Message me if you have questions. Don't just say, well, this isn't for me, or message me. Ask me your questions. Let me know what you're feeling. And also know that having that resistance is totally normal. Anytime you're faced with change, anytime you're faced with an opportunity to improve your life, you're going to feel that resistance, right? And we have to do the things that I'm talking about here every single day, right? And one of the first steps is just becoming aware of what are the things that I'm telling myself? What are the rules that I have created? So let's keep the conversation going. That is the best place to connect. The other best place to connect with me, and sometimes it's like on a more personal level because I share a lot more behind the scenes, my family. And I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, not sorry. In the next couple weeks, when we get there, I'm going to have so much spam, Disney spam. So just a warning in case, you're offended. There's that. So I am at Irresistible Icing on Instagram. You can message me there. You can connect with me there. And yeah, I thank you so much for listening. If this has been helpful to you, please go to iTunes and leave a rating and review to help my podcast grow and help other women find the channel. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Until then, stay irresistible. Bye, guys.